All right. Let's get officially started with the interview here. We're just I like rambling. I like rambling. Anytime we get like a huge wrestling guy with knowledge that you have, like I love talking about it.
I could talk to you all day and night about wrestling. I'll talk to you until I'm blue in the face.
Okay, so here we are officially here with a childhood friend of mine, someone that I've watched like grow. Into this like wonderful wrestler. Just starting up, he is a student of the world famous Monster Factory and a former FPW tag team champion. Ladies and gentlemen, Christian Rocco. Welcome to the WHS podcast.
You gotta cue up the studio audience. You gotta put up the applause sign.
Well, there we go. We'll insert insert. That's for the editor.
Well, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure. Absolutely.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, first, for the people that may not know your name quite yet, summarize your journey into becoming a wrestler.
Sure. I've been a wrestling fan my entire life, ever since I was 8 years old. I fell in love with wrestling after playing a couple of video games and then channel flipping. I saw Ezekiel Jackson and a jobber wrestle a match and completely get squashed. And from there, for some reason, I tuned into SmackDown that weekend, and it never stopped. I've been to every WrestleMania since 27, and it's just become such an ingrained part of my life that I had to do it. This was my calling in life. This was the thing that would make me feel whole. And in 2020, I signed up for wrestling school at the world famous Monster Factory, who have created some of the best wrestlers in the entire world and some of the biggest names right now in the WWE and everywhere else. Some people you guys might know: Big Show, Sheamus, Matt Riddle, Damian Priest, all came through there, all killing it, all doing great things. And I'm hoping to follow in that footsteps and hopefully get to that point.
All right. So I know it's been your ultimate goal to get to WWE. It's always been the dream of yours. Is there any other ultimate goal that you may want to have as a pro wrestler?
Yeah, there's a ton, man. I want to wrestle Scott Steiner as a stretch goal, hopefully. I want to have a promo battle with him and do some math with him, hopefully. I love Scott. That's always been the one I always say is like my stretch goal. But I've got a pretty big bucket list of like things and people I would definitely want to work with. But in terms of like the biggest goal, man, like it's winning a world title. That'll be the biggest culmination, I think, to this journey. And making enough money that I could support a family like my family supported me. That I think that's the real dream, is looking at it from the financial aspect too, of being able to not overstay your welcome, to have a good legacy, but also to take care of the people afterwards and yourself too.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that you became officially a pro wrestler during the pandemic, which obviously was, must have been very frustrating, but emotional experience to say the least. What is one valuable lesson that you took away from starting wrestling in the pandemic?
Yeah, for the most part, I think it was just trying to get back to normal, right? Like when I started during COVID, we weren't allowed to touch. So for a while, it was just looking at the screen and just doing match study. I still remember my first day at the Monster Factory. One of the people there retired that I had watched previously, so that was a little disappointing. But we watched 1-2-3 Kid and Bret Hart from '94 on Raw, and like even though we weren't touching or doing anything, it was still awesome to kind of get that knowledge and learn more about what goes into making a match. There's so much that you think you know about wrestling that you really don't, and I always thought I knew everything, and I really knew nothing. But as time progressed on, we got to do more, and it was just having that patience. And just once we finally got across like those big milestones of like, all right, here's my first bump, here's my first match, here's the first time on the show. It was a weird one because masks, social distancing, not being able to have as many people come through as there are now, not having the same opportunities. But you know what? We're so far gone past that point now that I think we're at the norm.
All right. So I would describe the wrestling world right now as decisive. Like there's a lot of, strong personalities, a lot of strong opinions about the wrestling world right now. In your opinion, what is like the current state of wrestling right now? Is the lack of like popularity because fans who support WWE and AEW believe both products are vastly different, or do you believe it's just something that is just not the same as it once was?
Well, it'll never be the same as it once was. Like the 90s were just such a hot point in wrestling, right? That late 90s period. Wrestling's probably never going to get back to that. Maybe it will. Maybe there's going to be something in the future that's crazy that I can't foresee. A lot of things have happened that I didn't think would happen. A pandemic. I didn't think Undertaker would lose at WrestleMania, but lo and behold, that happened. I didn't think Edge or so many of these other guys who are returning would ever come back into the ring. So who knows what could happen. As for like what wrestling is right now, I think more than ever, there's just so many opportunities. I think it's awesome that a company like AEW exists. A lot of people that I work with actively, even last week and the week before that, are on Dark and getting work and getting their name out there. So there's more opportunity than ever. There's another company where you can make money, which is an amazing thing. I think the wrestling world's in a good place right now. And it's nice to have competition because I think it makes the other people step up from both sides, whether it is AEW or WWE. But also, like, you got Ring of Honor that's still alive somehow. I didn't think that would ever happen either. And now New Japan's kind of progressing over into the United States. So there's just more opportunity than ever. And that's a great thing for me and people that are really trying to succeed in this business.
Right. So the WWE, as you may already know, they've taken the direction of chasing after athletic young people. They've been selling college athletes to NIL deals and putting them in the performance center because, in Vince's words, anyone can become a wrestler. So some that may have been watching, wrestling as a kid, some not quite as much. Does this truly conflict with young upcoming wrestlers on the indie scene like yourself, who have always been passionate about the industry, or is it more important to normalize wrestling being a gateway for college athletes who, might not have the opportunity to play the sport that they want to?
That's a great question. That really is. And it's a really interesting one given what's kind of happened with our place. So a girl that I just worked with, I had a match with before, and like she's been there since I have, just got signed to WWE. She has been wrestling since she was 14. And she got signed at, I think she's either 18 or 19, but it was kind of between her and some of the other athletes. So it's not like they're opposed to anybody. They're never opposed to making money. So if somebody's going to make money, they'll sign them. But for sure, they've definitely taken that younger approach. Just look at NXT 2.0. It's a complete overhaul of what they were looking for. But then again, in 5 years, that's going to change. 5 years ago, NXT wasn't what it was now, and 5 years before that, it wasn't. Vince tends to change his mind. I don't know him personally. I'm talking like I actually know Vince, but I think it's a phase right now. And if it works to the benefit of some people, it works to the benefit of some people. Some people didn't grow up wrestling fans, and that's not always a bad thing. There's a lot of stars that they made that had no background whatsoever, um, and still were able to make it and still were great. A lot of the guys that I grew up on in the 70s were just ex-football players who just found it, right? They weren't even fans. So I don't necessarily think it has to do with like being a fan, but it does have to do with being able to put in work and being passionate. I saw an article that just went out the other day where it's like if you don't get your stuff together within 90 days, you get cut from NXT, and it's like that. It's that hustle and bustle, man. You just gotta be a hard worker and be passionate. I think that's the only thing that really matters because anybody can make it as long as they put in the effort.
All right. That does it for my questions. Trey, my fellow co-host for LTTR. If you have any questions here for Pro.
I got a couple questions. Now,
Oh man.
what I mentioned earlier, the very important question. This put in some thought to this, right? Right now in WWE, who is your favorite wrestler on the brand right now for Raw and for SmackDown?
I'd be remiss if I don't say Edge, but I don't know if you want to count him necessarily. In terms of like younger people, there's so many, man. They're just all so good. Like I love Balor so much. I'm sure somebody's gonna slip my mind. I'm not gonna, yeah, throw up the two sweets, right? I mean, AJ is amazing. You got Asuka back, which is fantastic. Charlotte's great. There's so many great people there. In terms of like new people from NXT, God, like Braun Breaker's awesome. I really love him. There's so many. There's just so many. Like that's the great thing is like they have such an amazing roster of just so like such highly talented people that you forget how talented some of these people are. So like I guess if I could come up with one person, probably like it's tough for me to even decide because I also love Riddle and Priest, so it's hard not to mention them.
That's a good
You
answer.
he
I
was
like
waiting for one in particular. He was waiting for Lashley in particular.
yes.
Number
I was
one,
just
Oh,
Bobby
trying to
was
see,
the
do you like
Almighty!
Bobby Lashley?
You loving his new entrance?
Of course.
Oh,
And
he's
you hear
awesome.
that, Cam?
Lashley's
You
great.
hear that, Benny? You bums. Lashley is the goat.
Lashley's great, man. I mean, he really like for somebody that could have just left wrestling entirely. Again, somebody who wasn't like a wrestling fan getting into it, right? That they just signed him off of a look and they wanted to make him the next biggest thing and just something didn't click. Went to TNA, found everything that worked, found MVP to be his voice and even got better at promos too. He became that TNA champion and he proved that he could be that guy. And then finally when he came back, man, he just killed it. Great run as a champion. And there's nobody that looks like him either. You don't get too many of those guys that are so gassed up and huge like that. That's what makes him special.
Yep. Can't wait to see him go on and reclaim his WWE championship.
I'm
Uh,
ready for E to come back once he heals up. I hope he's doing well.
you said Big E? Yeah.
Yeah.
I miss him too. Damn Rich Holland. But anyways, I'm not even gonna get into that. I wanna say out of all the WrestleManias that you've been to, I noticed you say you've been to everyone since 27. You have a favorite one that you've seen?
Oh, for sure. It's definitely 30. 30 is an amazing one. Not only do you get like some like small amazing moments where Cesaro wins the Andre Battle Royal. You got like so many great matches on there, but you got Undertaker's streak ending, which is probably the most intense reaction I've ever heard, and it was complete silence at
Mm.
Mania. And then you've got like one of the biggest moments in the last couple of decades of wrestling, right? With Daniel Bryan winning both titles and finally putting like that cherry on top of that story.
When Undertaker lost his streak at WrestleMania, was you expecting him to lose to Lesnar, or
Anybody who says they did are complete liars, and I would never believe them. So I've got a funny story about that actually. So I was sitting there next to two Australian fans who absolutely despised the Undertaker the entire night. They were hammered. So they were drunk and belligerent the entire night, which is great. Like I'm all for it. I'm all for fans being crazy during shows. Um, but so if you weren't on the floor necessarily, we were kind of on the risers. You didn't hear the bell, so everyone in the arena, if you look, we're all just confused. Like, what just happened? Like, did something get screwed up? What's going on? And it wasn't until on the Tron above us where it said the 21-1 that everybody figured it out. So everyone's just like murmuring, going, "What's going on? What's going on?" Complete silence when that hits, except for these two who are sitting right next to me. Take off their shirts, start chopping each other, start spraying beer all over them. I'm sitting here about to cry because I thought the Undertaker's done and gone forever. And these guys having the time of their life while little kids over here are crying and grown men are falling to their knees because they're just in awe of it.
Hey, not gonna lie, that sounds like me when Bianca Belair lost in 26 seconds at SummerSlam. I was so lit, boy. I was turned up. We need another one of those, but sadly,
out
she'll
of
never
nowhere,
lose
man.
that trick again. She'll never lose.
No.
Never lose again that quick. I do got another question.
For sure.
As a wrestler, coming up, you know, the learning process, putting in the work, what is one thing that you found extremely difficult in the process? And then what's some advice you could give to someone else who wants to be an upcoming wrestler who has to go through the same?
For sure, man. Narrowing it down to one thing that's difficult. It's really, and it's still something I'm struggling with now. It's really just finding yourself and finding that comfortability, right? At the end of the day, it's everything that's entirely like ingrained as you as a human not to do. Like, you shouldn't throw yourself against plywood or against steel cables, right? Like, that's weird. That's strange. And you just got to condition yourself to do it. It's weird to be in front of people in your underwear performing. In terms of just advice, I mean, it's just going to sound as simple as it is, and that's just the way it is for everything. You just got to keep doing it. Eventually things get easier. As long as you never quit, like, and you're just showing progress, you're going to be getting better. And if you do it for long enough, something will come out of it. I'm wholeheartedly certain about that.
Good answer. Good answer. So to all you aspiring wrestlers that's listening at home right now, take heed to advice. Take heed to the words that's been said. Wise words. Hopefully, get to see you on the main roster soon. WWE, AEW, Impact, wherever you choose to go. Wish you much success.
Thank you, man. I really, really appreciate it.
All right. So we're gonna open up some questions that the rest of the crew may have here for Christian. If anyone has any questions for him, possible. CK, I know you have at least one or two.
Yeah, basically just want to chime off what Trey said. Yeah, man. Hopefully you make it to the WWE, bro. You definitely got some fans here, man. I'm more of a 2000-ish WWE guy, so I can honestly say I haven't watched as much WWE. The only reason I've been watching lately is because of my boys, my brother PC and Trey. Yeah, basically they're being forced, but I haven't been disappointed. I think what was that SummerSlam, Trey, wherever the Bianca lost in like 2 seconds. That was the last. I saw that, and I was honestly, I can honestly say after not watching for like 6 years, man, that was honestly a good.
It was crazy.
SummerSlam wasn't a disappointment. I'll say that.
No, I had fun watching it. That's the thing with wrestling. It's kind of hard not to have a good time, especially if you're there live. Like, there's nothing like being at a wrestling show live. You can't explain it. There's just a feeling there. Fans make everything where you go to anything, and there's nothing more interactive than wrestling. I mean, like, for me, I think the reason why I fell in love with it is because I've always been an artsy person my entire life. Like, I love film. I'm actually a film minor. So, like, I love music. I love performance. I love all that stuff. And wrestling takes that all and puts it into one. Like, it's got that improv aspect of it and working on the fly and working with those skills. It's intense, like, stories and acting and drama that's really fantastic and really interesting. And when done right, there's nothing better. There's that, like, grandiose stage and, like, this musical, like, rock star feel that you get when people walk down to the ring. There's nothing better than wrestling, in my opinion.
No, I hear you, man. It's the reason why the WWE is as popular as it is, man.
Yeah.
I guess I have one question. I guess this is for everybody. So I think we all kind of know that the WWE has had some superstars that should have been a lot bigger than they were, I guess, if that makes sense to you. But the WWE, I guess they didn't just quite build them to the superstardom that they should have built them to. Is there a guy I mean, it could be of all time that you felt like had the look, had the charisma and everything, and just did not reach that level of superstardom that he should have reached? Because I have my guy, and I'll answer it last, but I actually wanted to ask all of you that. And since we have a wrestler here,
there's definitely been those guys who seemingly had it all, right? The thing that I've kind of noticed the most about wrestling from the other side of the curtain, right, is we don't know everything that goes on back there. It's not really just like, all right, they look great, they do this, that, blah, blah, blah. There's more to it than that. If they're not hard workers, if they're a pain to work with, like eventually it just starts to fall apart, right? Like sometimes people fall through the cracks. Wrestling's definitely changed now. That's why I think they want to get people that are like fresh and raw down in NXT, because they can teach them how to be like coachable. You get better people who don't have egos. Not saying that all indie people have egos, but like it's easier to have somebody that's like this moldable piece of clay, right? In terms of people who had it all, there's so many. One that sticks out to me, it was just really, he had so many problems going on with him. Sean O'Hare was a big one. I'm a big Sean O'Hare fan. I'm a huge Brian Pillman fan. Had he not gotten injured, had he not kind of had his life fall apart, he could have been such a big star. There's just so many to pick from. And it's sad sometimes to look through that, but you know, that's life. Just stuff like that happens. And especially then in wrestling, that's at least a good thing now. With wrestling is I feel like a lot of people live a cleaner lifestyle since they've kind of had a lot of stuff to kind of to learn from, right? A lot of mistakes that were made. Hell, look at all the people from the 80s. How many of them are still around?
That's a great point, man.
2 out of 3 big aren't still there. 2 out of 3 big ones. Like we only got Hogan left. Warrior's gone, and so Savage.
I didn't even think of it like that.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. All right.
PC, straight?
For me, I mean, that's easy for me. I think it's William Regal. If you look at, yeah, like he had it all. Like in terms of what WWE wanted for their product, like he could do pretty much anything. He was very innovative. He was very adaptable to whatever WWE gave him, and it's just a shame. He could have been world champion for that company had he had his substance issues. I just don't think it gets talked about enough. Like obviously, I see him more and more every day, especially now that he's been in AEW. But I think him just his rise to the top, like it's just it could.
But all too, right? Like not only that, you could put him in any role. Like he really made being a lumberjack and a man's man fun and interesting and cool. If you guys want, you should check out this. Anybody who's like an aspiring wrestling fan, insane. So back in the day, they had the WCW Power Plant, and even back then, William Regal was taking like that leadership initiative of like working with the young guys, doing all the trainings and showing up and really trying to help people out. He has an hour-long match on the fly there that's recorded. And it's just insane to see that, like, number one, that he has the cardio to do that. Trust me, it's hard even just getting through a 5-minute match. Like, when I had my first 5-minute match, I never realized how hard, like, how much I'd be blown up. I'm like, oh, it can't be that bad. I've had longer matches than that. Thankfully, I've had a lot of tag matches lately. So that's kind of, like, broken in half. But no, it's, like, it's just crazy to see. Like, he has such a mind for the business and understands, like, all right, this is the structure of a match, and having that just completely framed in his head. It's insane to me, especially working on the fly like that. Not only that, but like Regal had an amazing career. Not only as a wrestler, but just as somebody behind the scenes. I mean, look at like I still think to this day NXT was probably the best wrestling television show that I will ever be that I could have ever been a part of during my time. Like I'm a big guy when it comes to classic wrestling, right? Like my nickname at the Monster Factory is Encyclopedia Brown because I know everything about wrestling, right? Like I study the history. Like I love World Class, I love AWA, but NXT was just something else, man. It was something special. Matches were incredible, amazing, and the production of it was insane. So William Regal did a big part in that too.
Well, PC, I'm surprised you didn't say Keith Lee or someone like that.
I love Keith Lee.
Actually,
I mean,
surprised you
now,
didn't say that.
yeah.
He had health issues. I mean, that was the biggest thing that was going on with him. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. Like the COVID thing really got to him bad. And I also know he wanted out of the company too. That was another thing too. Like that's the other thing that people tend to get upset and like mad about people getting let go or released. A lot of those guys ask for their releases, you know? So at the end of the day, it comes down to them. Like, to be honest, WWE wants people that have careers. Like, they want to employ people. They want to keep them around. But it's highly competitive and there's a revolving door. So you just got to meet their expectations and sometimes even have to exceed them just to stay around. And that just goes back to that hard work thing. Like, it's just a stick-to-itiveness and a drive that you can't teach anybody. It just has to be there.
TK, to answer your question real quick, for me, I think that it's like two tag teams in specific. One, Crime Time. They used to be a real good tag team. I used to love them. Also, I used to like Prime Time players as well. They also showed promise. Titus, he's still in the business. He doing behind the scenes work, all the charity events. He's pretty much a legend there now. Darren Young, he's one guy that drifted away. He had that baby face feel for him.
Like John Cena. The side by side of him and John Cena, same. They have the same face.
He should have been somebody special, but I mean, things don't always work out the way you plan or want them to. And then for Crime Time, it's like kind of the same with them. Both of these tag teams.
Have you ever read JTG's book?
They could do anything. Very entertaining, good in ring. Once again, RIP to Shaq Gaspard. Anybody knows that what happened with that. But as far as JTG goes, a lot of talent, just probably
big dude.
Who knows?
Really put on some muscle. Dude's insane.
He did. I've seen it too. He's
crazy. Yeah, he's really jacked now.
Yeah, and his chest huge. I've seen him in person. So I met him when I was a kid when he was still the size he was, and then I saw him now. I'm like, holy Jesus. But yeah, have you ever read his book?
I haven't actually.
If anybody hasn't read it, highly recommend it. I know it's still on my computer to this day. When it first came out, I think it was in like 2013, 2014, maybe a little bit after that. It's called Damn, Why Did I Write This Book? He did a sequel too. I remember reading it, but I just remember the first one a little more vividly. It is one of the best wrestling books, I kid you not, that I've ever read. And it's so funny how he writes it because he doesn't want to like bury anybody or put anybody under. But he gives you enough information to find out who they are. Like he refers to like Stephanie in the book as Boss Lady, or I forget who. Like he had a couple of names for people. Like he named like Jericho something and seen it, but like it just was this like never-ending cycle of just him getting heat just by doing dumb things and not thinking about it. The book is so fun, and it's such a quick read. It's only like 90 pages. I remember just reading it in like an hour, and it's just such a fun read. So like if you guys haven't, like highly recommend Damn, Why Did I. The name of the book, Damn, Why Did I Write This Book, comes from his release actually. Because if he didn't pick up the phone, they couldn't legally release him until he answered. So the first thing he said after he got released was, "Damn, why did I pick up the phone?"
That's interesting.
It's a really good book.
Well, yeah, I really like those answers. But I guess one guy for me that I always like, I mean, he was a guy that you loved and a guy that you hated. Like, I just felt like he had the look, he had the charisma, the personality. Mr. Kennedy. I don't know how you guys feel. I just like, bro, like I said, like the dude, he had the look, he had the size, the charisma, bro. The crowd, like I said, you either loved Mr. Kennedy or you hated Mr. Kennedy, and I felt like he should have been a lot bigger than he really was, man. Like, I don't know how you guys like. At least one. I don't know, man. Like Mr. Kennedy is just that guy. Like I talked to this about PC a couple of days. Remember when I mentioned him and randomly mentioned him in the chat? That's when I was on YouTube just watching random videos, and I'm like,
do you know who
Mr. Kennedy?
too.
He really should have been bigger than he really was, man.
You
And
know,
he could have.
I should have mentioned Shelton Benjamin. He was a part of that class with Batista and Orton and Brock. And man, it's just something didn't connect. I don't know.
You know what I felt? You know what I feel like? I feel like there was so much talent around this time. Like they had Mr. Kennedy, you had Batista, Jeff Hardy. I think he won the championship in like 2008. You had the Undertaker, you had Kane. Like there was so many names.
That's with Shelton, and that's one of the saddest things because he's so damn good. Like he really is, and sometimes you forget how good he is. Just watch his match with Shawn on Raw. Like that's incredible. Watch any of his stuff with Brock when they were a tag team. Like he can do anything. He's one of the freakiest athletes I've ever seen because he could do anything. He's strong as hell, he's fast as hell, and he's so damn athletic. Like he really out of that group of people, like I really would have if you put them all on paper, like yeah, they all have like more size than him, but I really would have thought Shelton would have been just as big of a star as all of them.
He could have. There's just so many names, man. There's so many guys.
But yeah, Kennedy's a great one. You know, like they were going to put the title on him. They had the Vince thing for him, and he got hurt. That was the thing that sucked. Unfortunately, sometimes I feel like I have bad luck, but I definitely don't have Kennedy's luck. Like, so he was supposed to cash in the Money in the Bank, but then he found out he had some kind of injury and needed surgery. They take the briefcase off of him, give it to Edge in that match on SmackDown. And then within that week, he finds out he doesn't need surgery. So they're like, well, we can't fix it now. Already went forward with it. And then the McMahon thing fell apart because, I mean, it just did. They ended up going in the comedy direction. And then he had that match with Orton. And that's what kind of led to his release, right? He got heat with Orton.
That's so crazy.
It's nuts.
Bro had to relinquish his money.
But he had a good career. He definitely had a good career. I mean, watch him in TNA. He was their world champion so many times and was carrying that company for a while. Especially when they had like some of their biggest names come through there. That was during the time when they had Hogan, Sting, Hardy, AJ, Bobby Roode, plus when they moved to Mondays too. So I mean, he was a really important part in that company.
He was the guy that I think, correct me if I'm wrong, beat Jeff Hardy.
Yes, he did. He beat Jeff when he was the Antichrist of professional wrestling, and man, like I love Jeff, but that title was so god awful. I know it's his design, but that thing's so hard to look at. That just does not look like a championship. I'm sorry.
Don't get me wrong, character was great. It's just the title that I think.
Oh yeah, no, I love heel Jeff. It was such a change of pace, and that's why I think I was interested in it. But man, that was that title was just not it. Okay. I'm all for custom championships too. Like I love the Edge spinner. I love a lot of the ones that people do. I even thought like just doing little creative things like when the Miz just had the W stuck down so it'd be the M is just really awesome. Like it's so arrogant and it just works for heels so great. I always feel like they really missed out on making that like custom Rock belt that they never did because they had the smoking skull for Austin and then they had that Brahma Bull one for Rock.
So that is unfortunately time for an interview here. Christian, I want to thank you so much for coming on to WeHateSports podcast, giving your knowledge of wrestling for myself, Trey, and the rest of the crew here, and of course to all of our listeners, man. We hope to have you back in the future.
Yeah, for sure, man. Reach out to me whenever you want. It's an honor to come on here, man. It was my pleasure, seriously. And it was very nice meeting all of you guys. Thank you for this opportunity. Do you care if I plug my socials real quick? I have to shamelessly plug.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just about to ask you, can you plug your socials for the listeners?
Sure.
I want to watch some of your matches.
I'm Christian Rocco 41 on Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter as well, Christian Rock 14. I could plug my LinkedIn if you want to hire me for any kind of jobs. I'm on Facebook as well. Just look up Christian Rocco. I'll be right there for bookings and inquiries. DM me if you guys want t-shirts. They're $25. I unfortunately don't have them on. I usually do. They're in my car right now. I just don't feel like walking all the way out there to show you. But yeah, whatever support anybody wants to give, more than happy to take it. So I appreciate it. And thank you again, guys, for having me on here.
No problem. All
you're
these
welcome.
links in the description of this episode, along with a YouTube video coming out, a short full interview with my man Christian Rocco here. So thank you once again, Christian, for coming on to the podcast. Man.
Thank you, guys.